This is Carter Boucher with Boucherart.com. I'm actually in the bathroom about to wash some brushes. I thought I'd do a quick video on how to properly wash watercolor brushes in particular. We'll talk about other brushes in different segments. I try and keep these segments pretty short. I assume that you don't have a lot of time to watch me talk about things. All right, here we go. I have some watercolor brushes. The first one is a Grumbacher, and it is a sable brush, but not a Kolinsky sable brush. This is a flat watercolor brush with sable hair. It's nice and long. I've had this brush for about 40 years. It's in great shape because I take very good care of how I wash them and store them, which we're starting to talk about in other segments. All right, let's get a look at the sink here. Now, first thing I do when I've been painting with one is rinse it. And you want to use lukewarm water, not cold, but definitely not hot. Hot tends to weaken the glue. Inside your brush, inside this metal ferrule, there is a thread wrapped with glue to hold the hair in place. All right, so now we get to the soaping part. You can use any soap that is high in lanolin. There's several commercial soaps that way. You can get a handmade soap. They sell special brush soaps, which I find kind of expensive, but they are good. And what you want to do when you're wiping this on a soap bar, notice I'm flipping my wrist so that I'm dragging the hair. That's also how you mostly want to paint if you want to take care of your brushes. All right, so I get some soap on there, and then I work it gently in with my fingers. Notice that I'm stroking from the ferrule towards the end of the brush. Then I rinse it. I'm still stroking from the ferrule to the end of the brush, so that you think of it as if you were shaping the brush every time, because that's what you're doing. And I stroke it again. You can see there's still color coming out. I'm going to repeat this process until no color comes out. All right, you can have a little bit of back and forth motion to your fingers, but not much. All right, you mostly want to stroke it, rinse it, stroke it on the soap. There's no color coming off, so this will be the last one. Now, I have a brush drying rack. I'll talk about how to make one of those, or you can just buy a commercial one. They're not very expensive. I made mine. You want to rinse it, make sure there's no soap left. I shake it off lightly, not hard, and then I reshape the hair back to the shape I want the brush to be. Nice, sharp, flat. I do not dry it with a towel. I'm going to take that and set it on my drying rack. The reason you use a drying rack is to keep the brush flat so the liquid doesn't go back and pool inside the ferrule. That will cause your brush to loosen. Now this brush is a Creative Mark Kolinsky Sable Round. You can see the paint coming off on the soap. Again, I'm going to rub from the ferrule to the point. This time I'm going to slowly turn the brush as I stroke it so that I'm bringing it back to a point. I'm going to rinse it thoroughly, stroke it again. I'm still getting a little bit of paint. You just always want to stroke from the ferrule towards the point or the flat edge of the brush so that you're reshaping the brush every time you stroke it on the soap and every time you rub it with your fingers. That helps keep the hairs from crimping, keeps them all facing the same way. This time I'm just going to rinse it. And we're not getting any color. Now maybe just a touch. Do it one more time. Now this time, the flat's fairly fast to reshape. I want you to see how I reshape this Kolinsky Sable. Now I have my other brushes down in the sink so that the water is rinsing over them, the soap. That way each brush gets a little easier. All right, no color this time, so I'm going to rinse it in the water. turning the brush a little so I'm constantly reshaping that round to a point. When I feel like I've got enough soap off, and you want all the soap off, that's especially important when you do oil painting brushes, which I'm going to do in a separate segment. You want to take this brush and very carefully repoint it, pulling your fingers away from the ferrule, get it until it's really sharp there, and then lay it flat. All right, now this one is a Winsor & Newton Series 7 miniature finest sable. I'm going to stroke it just like I did the others. So I'm stroking from the ferrule towards the point. Rub it with my fingers from the ferrule to the point. Rinse it. Now this one should clean out faster because A, there's less hair, and B, I was only using a very thin color with it. And the thinner the watercolor is when you paint, the faster it rinses out. Alright, so I've got it rinsed. Now, this one you really got to pay attention to get it nice and pointed, and then you're going to lay it flat. Alright, this is a synthetic script liner. I treat them with the same care I do the others, although they're not as fussy as the sable. I still like to take care of my brushes so they last. There are a few techniques I do, which I would recommend you first learn how to not tear up brushes, and then there are some techniques where you tear them up. Where you scrub in things, or scrub them out. Alright, this one washed really fast. And here again, I'm going to bring it back to the point. Repointing them when they're wet is sort of like giving it a perm. And if the hair of your brush ever gets misshapen, you can sometimes recover a brush by washing it and leaving soap on it and repointing it. And then just letting it dry that way. Leave it a day or two. Then carefully rinse it out, and sometimes it'll give it like a perm and it'll go back to its original shape. I've recovered several brushes that way. Alright, that's how to wash. Make sure you use lukewarm water. Use a high lanolin soap. Use lukewarm water or high lanolin soap. Be sure you stroke from the ferrule towards the point or the flat edge of the brush, or if it's a fan, towards the fan edge. Make sure you reshape it after you're through and lay it flat. If you don't have a drying rack, use paper towels. But make sure you leave the brush flat until it dries. That's very important.